HMOs are taking over and they're ruining Kent. Is that true? In this video, we're going to find out. I'm here with Aaron and Ellis from A&E Property, and the location of this property is Gillingham, which is a Medway town in Kent, and I've come down to see their latest HMO project. I thought to myself it would be really good to actually come and have a look at what they've created to perhaps give an answer to some of the negative connotations that are out there for HMOs. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves and then we're going to dive straight into that topic. Guys, can I get you to both introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, so I'm Aaron from A&E Property. We've been investing in HMOs and developments and flips for the last like 12 years. Yeah.
So Ellis from A&E Property. Begin investing in property when I was around 22, 23 with Aaron. And I had a really bad motorbike accident, which kind of gave me the encouragement to pursue that dream. So that's how we started. And since then we started off doing flips, went into developments, and then we landed into HMOs, where we kind of found a bit of a niche for ourselves, producing high-end luxury HMO accommodation.
Guys, so let's dive straight into this topic then. We're here with Aaron and Ellis. They've done a dozen HMO conversions, maybe a few more, not 100% sure, but you've done a fair number, and all in this particular area, and their focus is luxury, it's working class people. The tenant profile is people that get off to work, perhaps do a little bit of work at home and that sort of stuff, but they tend to be people that pay on time, look after the property, and you know, treat your property as their own home, right? Mm-hmm. Now, the title of this video is that HMOs are taking over and ruining Kent. And one of the reasons why I wanted to really dive into this topic is that there are probably lots of HMOs in Kent that are poor quality accommodation, perhaps let to tenant profiles which do upset the neighbours. Well, I can tell you from my own experience, I've been into a number of HMOs where there are people that live with drug addictions, that perhaps have just come out of prison, and various other aspects which, depending on where they are, can upset the local residents. Sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to introduce a sponsor of the channel. Trinity Finance is a directly authorised FCA regulated mortgage brokerage. Founded in 2015 with over 30 mortgage brokers, we're really well placed to help you with all your property finance needs. Starting with first-time buyers and those moving home, we also help people remortgaging residential and buy-to-let property. Alongside that, we specialise in ground-up development, commercial lending, HMO funding, mezzanine, auction, and also your traditional buy-to-let. If that's of interest, get in contact with us via email at info@trinityfinance.co.uk, or you can give us a ring on 01322 907 000, and we look forward to hearing from you. Now, these chaps do something different. It's very high quality accommodation, but what I found really interesting, and when I first met these two guys at a property networking event, they sent me a link to an online news website. Yes, they are actually famous. I'm going to put a link to this news article in the description below. But unfortunately, Aaron and Ellis were not painted as celebrities offering amazing accommodation. These two were made out to be the scum of the earth landlords of Gillingham that are wrecking all family homes and creating terrible proposition for the local residents. In fact, one of the comments on quoted in this news article, and alongside probably another 60 to 100 planning objection comments that they got, says the property is going to be an eyesore. Okay, that was from one of the neighbours. Now, I thought what I'd do is, rather than me, because you guys, if you're here and you're watching this video and you're following my channel, you already know I'm pro HMO. Okay, I already do HMOs myself, something similar to what these guys do. But what I thought is, rather than me giving you my opinions, let's get the opinions of these two on that comment in that article that you are creating an eyesore. How do you respond?
So the residents, when they think of the word HMO, they expect really poor quality, they expect prison, people coming out of prison, etc. But what we're trying to do is build a brand where if they see an A&E property board go up, they know that it's going to be luxury, high end. So when you look at our property from the outside, it looks way better than any other property in the street. The internals as well, as you can see, a lot nicer than a lot of their homes. And I think in that article, they also said that there was, the kitchen looks like a CGI photo, and
which is a computer generated image, yeah? So not real, yeah.
And it is a real kitchen. It was a real photo.
Yeah.
So it's quite funny.
Yeah. So to come back to that comment then, what you've done to this property, would you say it's an eyesore, what you've created? Is that something that you would say you've left the neighbours with, or how do you respond specifically to that?
It's the nicest property on this street.
Right.
And all of our projects will be the nicest from the external.
So the other sort of comments that they were getting on their planning application was something around the fact that this property will reduce the value of the other houses, the other family dwellings on this road. And you can kind of understand if someone's concerned about that, they may think that their house is going to reduce in value. So again, if you could respond with your comments to what you think about that.
I can understand their concerns in regards to the types of tenant that may go in there. Obviously, our tenants are all working professional tenants. And in regards to the value of their homes, I mean, if you're looking at the street scene, our house is the best on the street. It's the most expensive house on the street in terms of value. And if you look at the internals, it's also it's the best standard of house on the street. So if you're then comparing houses and houses, it's actually, I believe it's actually going to be uplifting the value of their house, not downvaluing it.
Yeah, sure. And one of the things I've noticed with the products that you guys create, so you bring these projects from normally derelict state or very rundown, and you bring them to this amazing condition. The things that a lot of people forget about is that when they look at the street scene, again, we've probably put some footage up of the street scene, but some people don't look after their houses and they are in disrepair. So sort of comments around the fact that they're going to reduce your house, their house value by putting a HMO here, it may well be the absolute opposite to that. It may be that this house is actually increasing their value by bringing something in really good order compared to lots of other houses that are in disrepair, because houses need maintenance and a lot of people don't do maintenance. I think when I was driving up this road, there's a house with a load of foliage growing out of the gutter. And that means they haven't cleaned their gutters for years, and that causes problems and damp and mould and things. So it's sort of almost, this house sticks out like a sore thumb as the best on the road, doesn't it? Yeah. So the comment before you'd created the product is kind of really it's a bit ironic that they're writing that now, seeing how great. So that leads me on to a little bit of a conversation really about what you've actually done here, because it's all good us talking about it, but for the viewers, we'll dive into a bit of a conversation about planning and what you've done, how you've created this product. So can you talk me through the adaptations to the building and how long that took you to do that as well?
Yeah, sure. So we do all of our works. We try to get all the construction works done under permitted development. So what we've done in this case is we've converted the garage, because the house originally was a 3/4 bedroom house with a garage. We've converted the garage, which is where we're standing now, and then we extended it out the back to make it longer to produce this room here. And the original kitchen, which is beside that, is now a long bedroom, which has a kitchenette and ensuite in there. It's a really nice bedroom. We'll see it later. And then we've also gone up into the loft. So we've done a double dormer loft conversion. So we've boxed out the rear part of the roof and the dog leg on the back as well. So just creating a lot more space, making 7 bedrooms. We've done all of that under permitted development, and then we just go in for a full planning application to then ask to use that for 7 bedrooms and 7 people, HMO.
The other thing when I think about like people's perceptions of HMOs, because if you were living next to a HMO and you found out, you know, next door there's going to be 7 people living in the house and we're a family of 3, for example, you might sort of think, how are they going to cram all them people in there? What's going to happen with the drainage? What's going to happen with cooking and smell and nuisance and noise? So we'll address a lot of those sort of questions as we go through the property, but I do think we should sort of talk about what you've done to make sure you've got a fully functioning project and that you don't upset the neighbours and all that sort of stuff. So you can probably see from behind there's a very nice looking kitchen. This kitchen, I guess, cost you a substantial amount of money to put that in. I know you do them over and over again, but do you think that that kitchen is suitable for the number of people that are living in the house? And also, just to add to that, we'll bring up a little image now on the screen of what they've done in the bedrooms, because they have tea stations, or also kind of known as kitchenettes in the bedrooms. But can you just comment on this and the tea stations and how that's kind of suitable for the tenants, if you like?
Yeah, sure. So we always install 2 large fridge freezers, and we make sure that they're large capacity, so there's lots of room in there. But additional to that, we do have kitchenettes as well. So they have fridges in those too. So if there's any overspill, they can put their stuff in there. We also have 2 lots of cooking facilities, which is what we need for the standards or HMO license. But on top of that, we also have microwaves with grilling functions. We have air fryers, and this is just to relieve any additional pressure that the kitchen may have. So in those kitchenettes, they also have these things in there too. So it just means that people in their rooms are less likely to use the kitchen and some of the stuff they can use in their bedroom. And it just means that the house works in a lot more efficiently.
Yeah, really interesting, and a really decent space. It might not be you might not be able to feel that when you're watching this video, but it's a real big room, and it's sort of, you know, suitable. There's lots of seating around us and adequate space for people. So really good finished kitchen, I'd say. Guys, I met you at a property networking event a while back, and you guys were spotlighted as people that are kind of been doing it a fair amount of time, started off pretty young as well, and the owner of the networking event said, have a chat with these boys. That's how I first got to meet you. But one of the things I always found quite interesting is the fact that you are a duo, you're a pair. And that's quite uncommon in property. I mean, I'm sure there are people out there that have gone into business with people, or perhaps they've bought property together, but they don't always, those sort of partnerships don't always end well. And a lot of the time you get people that fall out, or perhaps they do some together and some on their own and that sort of stuff. Now, you two really have stuck together and see it as a business. The branding, the fact that you do everything together and you delegate tasks and all that sort of stuff is really interesting. So whereas me, always doing things on my own, property can be a very lonely game. How does that work in practice though, right? Because it's all good, we show everything we do, but do you guys irritate each other? Do you argue? Is there like, do you know what each other does? And talk me a little bit through about the relationship if you can.
Yeah, so we've not like sat down and said, okay, these are your roles, these are my roles. It's just naturally like over time, we've learned to work together a lot better, more efficiently. Ellis is the bad cop, I'm the good cop, so I do all good news, he does all the bad news. Here's the section 21, mate, can you just drop it off for me on your way home? Lovely, cheers mate, thank you. Did you see the tenant? I don't want to know. No, but we play our roles really well. And so I handle most of like the tenant management and all of that side of the business. Ellis will go and find all the deals, and I'll find the money as well. You know, that's how we sort of work.
Do you see it the same way he sees it? That's what I want to know. Does he pull his weight, and are you happy with
that? Oh, yeah, he absolutely pulls his weight. I mean, He's very good at admin, anything to do with computers. So he builds all our spreadsheets and is an absolute machine with all the tasks involved in that. And I'm awful at all of that sort of stuff. So I'm quite unorganised, but I'm pretty good at finding the deals, analysing the deals, thinking of the bigger picture on where we're going to go next, and just finding information, piecing it all together, and using that. So I feel like we work really well together. And where our minds think slightly differently, it's great when I come up with an idea and I can bounce it off of Aaron, and we come up with an even better idea together, and it just works really well.
Two minds are better than one, as they say, right? It's a really interesting thing, because like I just don't know that many people that are in partnership, and as I'd like to be a fly on the wall when you're disputing at some point with each other over something, but no. So really, it's sort of like you kind of know what your roles are, but they've formed naturally over time. It's not like you do this and I do that. Ellis sounds like he's got all the fun parts, and you sound like you're sorting out all the issues after. But you know, it's your skill set, isn't it? It's what you do best and how that works, and then complementing each other's skill set. To you know, if you almost sort of think, if I could have two of me, you could do more, couldn't you? So the fact that you're together, hopefully, is a good reason for long-term success. So, guys, let's now start to have a look around this property, look at some of the rooms. We'll do a bit of a tour as we go through, and we're going to keep addressing the comments and the views of HMOs ruining Kent. So this video is being filmed in March 2025, and I just want to provide a little bit of context. But the first thing to touch on is the fact that we have a national or emergency housing crisis in the UK. We don't have enough properties for the demand of people living here in this country. And if you look at this in detail and you do some research, what you'll actually find is that one of the major problems is that there isn't enough social housing. So we've had governments consecutively selling off their housing stock via right to buy schemes and other means to get rid of property, and an ever-growing list of people that need housing, social housing. So there's this huge demand of people living in temporary accommodation, and that's become a real problem in the UK. Now, the reason I talk about this is to provide some insight into why so many people may have negative connotations of what properties may have what types of tenants in. Because where you have local hotels that are filled with people on social housing, and there's nothing wrong with that, there's a massive need for it. Unfortunately though, lots of social housing properties do have higher levels of nuisance and complaints with the neighbours. Think about living in a standard residential road where everybody owns their own house, and one of the houses is a social housing property where the tenants may not look after their property as much as the neighbouring properties. They may have loud parties, they may cause a nuisance. Not all of them do, but there is probably a larger amount of complaints from those types of properties. So, to address this issue and the theme of all HMOs are going to be filled with this type of tenant profile, whether you want that or not, or whether you are in favour of that or not, I wanted to discuss what you do to vet your types of tenants that move into these types of rooms that we're in here. Sure. So which one of you wants to address that question of vetting the tenants and how you move them in?
Yeah, so we have a vetting process, but the first thing is we have a tenant profile that we tend to rent to, and that's working professionals. That's because a lot of students, I'm not tarnishing them all in the same brush, but a lot of them are young, they've just coming out of school, just coming out of living with their parents, so they're not used to living by themselves, so they tend to be messy, they tend to be the ones that have the parties and stuff like that. We want to produce high quality accommodation, so we want it to be looked after, and we find the best tenant profile is working professionals for that. People coming out of prison and stuff like that, they're also not going to look after the property. So first off, that's the type of tenants we tend to rent to. And then we'll have a list of questions that we'd ask them before even doing a viewing with them as well. So we'd ask them, for example, what if they've got any bad credit, or the reason for them moving. You know, have you had an argument with your previous landlord over the money that you're not paying them, and stuff like that. So we have preloaded questions which we would ask them, and then it kind of gives us a really good idea to paint a picture of the person that their character, and then decide whether we want to move forward with that to a viewing.
Amazing. So you're quite selective then on who's moving into your rooms. But talk to me about the thought process to create this luxury product. So you're creating these rooms that are a calibre above the other rooms that I can see. So if you go onto spare room, you'll see this compared to other rooms. You'll think, wow, that's amazing. I'd love to live there. Now, is that a process that you've really thought about to think we want to create something that's better than others, our competitors, to attract those tenants? Is it done specifically for that reason?
It's not specifically for that reason, but we produce these homes to how we would like to. So if we lived in this house, we want storage under the bed, we want to maximise the storage, we want to make sure that there's super fast Wi-Fi on every floor, like just everything that we would expect from accommodation is what we've put in. So that's why it looks amazing, and everything is like spot on.
Yeah, when we first got into HMOs and renting out houses, we noticed that there's a lot of poor accommodation. And a lot of buy-to-lets or just rental accommodation was your typical Magnolia or dated kitchen, stuff like that.
So would you say that's poor accommodation, or would you just say that's unmodern?
Poor.
Because there is a difference, isn't there? A lot of landlords would just do Magnolia, cheap kitchen, and it's just not modernised. This, when you come in here, it's ultra modern, isn't it? Slatted walls.
It is, yeah. So poor and unmodern. And when I have family members that are looking to rent places, and it's very difficult to find somewhere that's quite modern or that feels like a home, because at the end of the day, even though they are not poor accommodation, but they're not modern, they're very dated, then it doesn't really feel like a home. And the thing is you're not going to spend a load of money and refurbish it yourself because it's not your property. So you're kind of forced to live in accommodation like that because there isn't anything else about. But at the same time, it never really feels like a home. And we wanted to come into this market, and we wanted to make sure we produce the highest quality accommodation we can. And at the end of the day, when we've completed a refurbishment, we always want to look at it and say, would we live here? And if we do, then and every time we do complete a project, I'm like, wow, like looking in this bedroom, I'm like, I'd love to live here. So that kind of gives us a gauge of whether we've done something right or not, and that's the way we normally work.
I think that's really, really a great way to set up a business. You're thinking, is this product suitable for me? And if it is, then I'm happy with my customers, because your tenants are your customers, whether they would live here. And also like mindset, like people's environment, where they live and where they spend most of their time massively impacts their mindset. If someone's living in a property that's derelict or very run down and not modernised, and they get stuck in a sort of a rut with their mindset, sometimes they can just move into a space like this and all of a sudden it makes them happier, because of headspace and all that sort of stuff. Right, let's talk about noise, okay? So, because we know from your planning application or applications, one of the comments that you're going to get is noise, that the tenants are going to be loud, there's going to be lots of people living in the property, and that we're going to hear them from the neighbouring properties. So, what have you done about that? Would you agree that this HMO is going to impact the neighbours from a noise perspective? And what have you done to tackle that?
So when that comment comes in, I think people are more concerned about the volume of people, and they seem to forget that a family could also live here anyway, and that's going to produce noise. But what we do is when we come in, we soundproof the party walls so that we're limiting as much as we possibly can any noise pollution going across, but also to stop the noise coming back to us, because you don't want to hear someone shouting and everything else that I hear the complaints about. But also all of the floors in between are soundproofed. Even on our 6-bedroom properties where we're not required to do it under a building control aspect, we always drop the ceilings, we're insulating the ceilings. That helps with heat retention, but it also just helps in noise, because you don't want to walk around and hear the person above you moving around. Like that's not high quality accommodation.
Totally agree. So the other thing to point out for anyone watching this who perhaps isn't into property investing but just wants to know a bit more about how these HMOs are created, these luxury high-end HMOs. This particular property is had a change of use class. It's known as a sui generis HMO. It's gone from being just a standard residential house to actually having a commercial change of use class to become something which has enhanced building regulations. And one of the things that you guys will have had to have done on this particular project is a sound test. Impact and airborne sound test, it's normally known as. And when you renovate an existing house, so let's say now someone came in here and bought this house and they were going to renovate it as a family home, there is no requirement to use blue acoustic soundboard. There is no requirement to use any dense thermal insulation that is soundproof. There's no requirement to drop ceilings or use resilient bars or acoustic matting or sealant, all these things that are really costly. So I'm answering the question for you here, guys, so pat me on the back. But one of the things I would like to say is that if you are getting building control sign-off for a sui generis HMO and you're passing a sound test, I would go further and say you are actually reducing all noise from neighbouring properties. I mean, you won't hear anything. With what goes into these walls, the neighbours will not hear you. So you're actually benefiting the neighbour.
Yes.
Because before they could hear things from this property, couldn't they? Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yes,
I
yeah.
agree.
Excellent. Right, so let's talk a little bit about what you do to because you've done this a number of times now. You're still looking for new projects. Some you're buying, some you've got in planning, some you're developing out. But now that you've done this a few times, how do you manage the neighbours going forward on future projects? Because you learn as you grow, yeah? So you're like, you know, the next one you do, talk me through what you do with the neighbours and any information that you might give them when you're going to venture into this world so that you can kind of handle those objections that you might get.
So there's always a process when we first start building works and they know that there's a HMO that's going to be here. They get very angry. They think the worst. They think there's going to be ex-cons here. They think, you know, there's going to be parties all the time, and they think it's going to be really bad accommodation. So as we go through the build, we have little bits of trouble from the neighbours, and then as we finish it and they see what product we have, we end up actually being really, really great friends with the neighbours. They end up having our number, we have theirs, and we get on really well. But moving forward, what we've learned from that is that they always have the same perception. So before we start, we give them an information pack and it shows them the quality of accommodation that we produce from our other HMOs, the sort of tenant profiles and stuff like that. So they can kind of change their perception on what's actually going to be there, and it kind of gives them reassurance. So all of the things that they're always worried about, we can reassure them with this little pack, and it just really helps. It just really helps their peace of mind.
Amazing. So whether you've got a negative impression or connotation of what a HMO may or may not be, and we've discussed a bit in this video about tenant use class and profile, whether it's social housing or private rented sector. The other issue that we have is that not only do most of the general public have this negative connotation of HMOs, but we also have planning officers, local authority councillors, enforcement officers. Most of those types of people also believe that HMOs are all poor quality, and they believe that they're run down bed sits with lots of nuisance and disturbance and full of people selling drugs and all that sort of stuff, right? And so what I thought was really interesting about what Aaron and Ellis are actually doing, and if you guys aren't following Aaron and Ellis on Instagram, I'd highly recommend you do that, because they put some really good content out and showcase what they do day to day, which is really interesting. I'll put their social media stuff in the description on this video. But what these guys have actually done is they've actually gone a step further, and rather than just getting on with the neighbours in the community, they're actually now trying to challenge the opinions of people that make the decisions about HMOs. So guys, can you talk to me about what you've done here with this specific property and with the planning department?
So they've actually asked us to be critical friends, where we're invited to go down to their offices, showcase our HMOs, and trying to just educate them on the difficulties that we have trying to get something like this through planning. Because when there's so many grey areas, and trying to get something like this through planning, it's not clear cut on what's going to be accepted and what's not. So trying to resolve those sorts of issues so they can adapt their policies and stuff to make it a little bit more seamless for people to know what they actually need to produce, and then they can take that through planning. So it's just all about learning from each other and changing their perception that not all HMOs are bed sits, and also on the other side, how they can help us in making the process a lot more seamless.
Really interesting, and well done, guys, because I don't know anyone else that is getting head of planning and invited round to their HMO. So hats off to you guys for doing that. Now let's just touch briefly on Article 4. So again, for the purpose of the viewers, or whether you're into HMOs or you're just watching this because you're interested in what an HMO is, there is something called an Article 4. And Article 4 is basically something that the council use to prevent people from taking houses and converting them into HMOs without going through planning permission. So right now, this area is Gillingham. You can buy a house and you can turn it into a HMO, and you don't need planning permission for that. That's a permitted development. The government of this country allow you to do that. Now, some boroughs, including Bexley, Bromley, Lewisham, lots of London, bit of Ashford, some parts down on the Kent coast, they have implemented this Article 4 directive. And that will mean you can't just buy a house and turn it into a HMO. You need to go for a full planning permission application and ask the council, can I turn this property into a HMO? Now, the question for these two chaps here is, knowing that Gillingham is a non-Article 4 area, and before I get you to answer it, the only other thing to just mention is, separate to Article 4, you've also got room standards, right? So across the country, each area has different minimum room sizes. In some of the areas I operate in, you need to have a minimum room size of 9 square metres, excluding an ensuite. Some areas are just 6.51 square metres, which are tiny little rooms. And this room here is probably, 20 square metres or so. So it varies, because if you are creating a 6-bed HMO with 6.5 square metre rooms and no en-suites, you can kind of see how that wouldn't be a very nice place for people to live. Okay, so what you're creating are large rooms. Yeah. Now the question really, which is linked to room sizes and things like that and products and what you're creating, is, do you, if Gillingham create Article 4, do you welcome it, or are you against an Article 4 coming in this area?
I would welcome it, because the whole reason why we started this was try to raise the standards of HMOs, and with the influx of people producing HMOs in the area, there is a lot of bad quality, and it's such a shame. I think Article 4 will completely remove a lot of that stuff, so it will just help the overall area, and things will get accepted that are going to be a good quality of accommodation, and overall it will just help the area, and I think that's a good thing.
And so with Article 4, it will prevent new HMOs coming in without thoughtful design and a consideration of room sizes, parking, noise, all the rest of that sort of stuff. So what do you think that might do in terms of your ability to keep scaling? Do you think it's something you just adapt if they brought Article 4 in? Can you see it coming in? Do you think it will come in? Is there any talk about Article 4 coming in this area?
So we asked this question, and right now there's no talks of Article 4 coming into this area. Would it slow us down on scaling? Yeah, potentially. It potentially could slow us down, but that being said, it would mean we just adjust our strategy slightly. So we would then look at larger buildings, commercial blocks, buildings that are a lot more suitable with parking facilities and all the points that come up.
On parking, I'm sorry to jump in, but again, I'm pretty sure if I went through your objections on your planning applications from all the local residents, that is probably one of, would you agree that's one of the objections?
Yes, yeah.
This house is going to have loads of people and they're all going to park, and we're never going to be able to park on this road. Yeah? Have I hit the nail on the head there? So how, again, I'm asking you always to defend yourselves. You're on the back foot constantly. I'm very sorry about that. But how do you respond? If someone says this is full of people parking, do these people in this house park on this road, and how does that work?
Typically, a tenant will pick a property that is close to where they work because they want to walk. They don't want to. They have no need for a car, so the public transport is good enough. So yeah, we've had people move from one property to another property because they've changed job and that's closer, which is a pretty good feeling. The other thing I say is this is a 3-4 bedroom house anyway. So if you've got mum, dad, and a kid, or one kid, maybe 2 kids, but that's potentially 3 cars anyway. We've got 6 or 7 in this house. Only 3 people will have a car out of them 7, if that. Most people will use public transport, or they'll cycle, and there's cycle facilities in the back for them to secure their cycles. and yeah, we don't, most of our tenants don't drive.
So the percentage of the people living in are mainly people using public transport rather than driving, but there's no way of enforcing that. And so that could be something that they kind of think, well, what if 7 people do drive? What's interesting about some of the HMOs I've done recently is we've actually volunteered to put restrictions on our houses where the residents living there are not allowed to apply for parking permits. So when we've put in sui generis planning applications, we've actually said, here's the cycle, here's the bins, this proximity to bus stop, to train station, our tenant profiles, none of them have cars. Please put a restriction that we can never apply for a parking permit. So we're actually making that quite clear that we don't want to add to any parking pressures that they have on the road. And I do think that is something HMO developers should really consider, especially if they have a road that is saturated full of cars already and you can never get parked. So something for us to all think about, I think. Because I get the privilege of coming to look at lots of people's HMOs, doing these site tours I've been doing, I get to think, you know, is this better than mine? Or is mine better? And I get to analyse it. And I can honestly say, coming around this property, the thought that goes into these rooms that you've created is, you know, people think it's just like, go to one of these companies and furnish it. But the layout, the thought process, all the intricacies of this room, it does take quite a lot of detail to do that. And the product, it shows what you've actually created. Someone will be very happy to come into a room like this. This is one of the front bedrooms in the house. It looks about 12, 13 square metres. Plus it's got a lovely ensuite done here. Plus it's got what I call a tea station with lovely worktops, a fridge in the tea station, microwave, kettle. It's got everything you'd kind of want to be comfortable and live in a property. So who designs this? Who's thought about all this stuff in here and who's taken care of creating this? And talk me through that if you can.
So I design most of the stuff in our HMOs. Myself and Aaron will both design the space, the floor layout. So the first thing that we'll do is we use a lot of the same furniture, so we have all of the measurements.
Yeah.
And we plot them on a drawing, and then we'll work them and rework them to make sure the space is the most usable space. Because it's all well and good having all these items in the room, but depending on where you put them makes the room more usable or less usable. And it also we also try to make it so there's enough floor space and it feels spacious as well at the same time. So we do things such as the beds are always Ottoman, so there's extra storage underneath the beds. We make sure they've got drawers which are deep drawers instead of small and slim. We make sure they've got plenty of wardrobe space. The kitchenettes, wherever we can, we like to put a kitchenette in there, especially if the rooms are quite far away from the kitchen. So we'll have all the appliances here, enough to do a lot of their cooking and stuff like that if they need to. We also have fridges and stuff in here as well. We always make sure that we get desk space in there. We have Ethernet ports. Even though we have really high quality internet, we get the best internet possible, and we have Wi-Fi pods on every floor, so there's always great connectivity there. But we're going for a really super modern look, so we spend extra money on things like the chairs, making sure that they're comfortable. You know, the kitchen, making sure it's not only looks good, but also is going to last a long time. So we've taken inspiration from super modern apartments and kind of like knuckled it down and made it more durable as such as the carpet, for example. The carpet is, you know, you can bleach it, you can scrub it. It's going to last a long time. Whereas before we used to put really soft carpet in there, it doesn't last very long. So now we want to put durable carpet down, but at the same time we don't want it to look shit. We don't want it to look scrap.
These guys, I don't know if you can tell this, but these guys have got all the HMO scars from all the years of learning as you go. You know, you put a bed in that doesn't have storage. What happens? They fill up the room full of storage everywhere else. People put coat hooks on the back of the doors. They hang 30 coats on it. It falls off. It damages the door. The bathrooms are not fitted as efficiently as they should be, and there's plumbing issues, and you constantly have all these problems. And what you guys have essentially done is thought about what are all the problems that Aaron's probably going to have to deal with.
That's right.
And then let's try just hit those nail on. So you've got a mirror for getting ready in the morning that they can get dressed, look at themselves in the mirror, sort things out. a desk. Why? Sometimes people want to eat in the room. They don't want to eat downstairs. They want to work in the room. Bedside table. I notice you've got light switches on the side of the bed. For those who don't want to get out of bed and turn the light off, they can turn it off from there. These things, it's almost like a little mini hotel in some ways, without it being run like a hotel, because these are people's homes. The reason I'm talking about this, I really do think like lots of people don't think about this sort of stuff. I've been in some HMOs where it is, let's buy some stuff from IKEA, create a box, shove it all in there, and then they can share a bathroom with someone else. And those two things are not comparable at all.
Yeah. And we will just touching on that. We will like move a wall so that we can get the wardrobe in.
Yeah.
Or we know that if we take the skirting off, the wardrobe can fit in a little bit tighter. All the beds here, I've taken the skirting off so the bed pushes up further.
Yeah.
Just all the little details, real little details. And there's actually been times where Ellis is not happy with the colour of the gold around the kitchenette.
Yeah, I'm very fussy.
And we have had to change all of them.
Yeah.
It's the wrong colour gold.
It's the wrong colour gold.
Yeah, it's still got to go. Still got to be changed. Yeah.
Right, let's head downstairs then. We'll have a brief look at some more the other rooms. We'll show you as we're going through, and then we're going to go out into the back of the garden to have a look around there as well. So we're in the hallway of the ground floor. This property's got 3 floors, and you've got 7 people living in it. You've got people warming and cooking food in their bedrooms, and you've also got a kitchen. And obviously, naturally, in HMOs, one of the biggest considerations actually to keep people safe is fire.
Yep.
So we're talking about maybe a fire risk assessment, or perhaps some HMOs even involve liaising with the local fire brigade, believe it or not. So I notice now you've got this Grade A fire alarm system. Can you talk me through what you've had to do in terms of fire to keep the tenants safe in the property?
Yeah, because there's this property is 7 bedrooms, 7 people. It means it's outside of the 6-bedroom rules. So when you do like a C3 to C4 6-bedroom HMO, it's a lot easier on the fire regulations. You still have to have fire doors, still have to have fire alarm system, etc. But when you move into 7 or more people, it's a lot more difficult. Like you said, building control have to consult with Kent Fire Brigade, make sure that they're happy with the building, a fire risk assessment at the end of the project to make sure that everything, all your building materials and everything is in line with what should be in the property. And also here we had to do a bit more. So this is our fire alarm panels. This is what you'll see in most HMOs, but then this is an AOV panel. So what this allows us to do is, in the event of a fire, there is a big window on the roof that basically opens up, that ventilates the staircase and allows people to escape the building safely without them getting smoke in.
Yeah, without inhaling smoke. It's a real consideration, isn't it? Because you sort of think, well, it's not just smoke detectors in the rooms in case there is a fire. It's also keeping everyone safe, because the last thing you want is, in the event of a fire, someone losing their life. Is it higher risk, of that happening in a HMO? So other things for fire regulations, you've got fireproofing under the staircase is kind of a requirement now, and then you've got fireproof doors.
Fireproof doors, 30-minute fireproof doors. On the kitchen here, we're using an FD60, which is a 60-minute fire door, just to create a better separation between the protective fire escape and where the main cooking facilities are. There's lots of things in here that you'll see as you go around that are really important. But another thing that we've also implemented is we use a smoke alarm that's independent to the room, and then a heat detector that's into the panel. Because if someone was to vape in the room, obviously there's no vaping allowed, but
it all causes a problem.
So
how do you guys sort of manage this in terms of like an ongoing maintenance? Because it's all good setting one of these up in the beginning, isn't it? But then it's how do you actually make sure this thing is working and make sure that the tenants are safe on an ongoing basis? So is there someone who comes in and sets this off, and how does that side of things work?
So weekly you have to do a fire alarm test, make sure everything is working how it should. What we do is, we haven't got this set up in this property yet, but we have like a little QR code. QR code goes through to a Google form. The Google form asks, does this work, does that work, does the AOV open, etc. So when the cleaner comes into the house, she can scan the QR code, it goes through to the form, she can fill out all the information that she needs to, and then that gets recorded. And then if there's an issue, we'll be notified, and then we send maintenance to come and have a look at it.
Well, you're much more efficient than I am. I just send my local bloke round once every week to set it off. You've got Google Forms and this and that. And
we got fed up with the fire books. They just end up getting filled, and you just have to keep doing it and order it. And you order the same one, but it's not the same. It's got less pages. Google Forms, way easier.
So I got in touch with Aaron and Ellis a while back, and I said, guys, I need to come down and shoot some footage at one of your HMOs. And they said to me, oh, you've got to come and look at the latest projects. And they told me about a few things that they had at the project, and I thought, bloody hell, they're outdoing me here a little bit with my room, so let me go and check this out. It might give me a bit of inspiration. But I don't know if you can see from behind the footage here, these guys have gone above and beyond to create a product which is not only an amazing internal space for the tenants to live and far surpasses what is required for a HMO, but they've actually created spaces in the garden which attract the type of people that will really make use of living here and creating a home. So for the golfers out there, there's a little putting green, okay? Now I like to play a little bit of golf. I'm not sure you two are into golf as much, but even if it's just a bit of fun for the tenants, like they're out in the garden, it's the summer, you've got a barbecue, they can knock around and play a little bit of golf. But not only that, they've also got some additional features which I'm going to show you as well. And let's go and have a look down at what you've created in this rear outbuilding, and then after that we'll have a little putting competition and see who wins. Right, so down here, if you fancy taking a selfie, you've got the selfie wall. Guys, should we take a selfie? What do you think? And then over down here, again, some really great features. So you've actually got a little mini cinema room, which is incredible. You just think, like, you know, the guys are in the rooms, maybe if they're a little bit bored of having that space and then they want to come and chill out, or a few of them are going to get together on a Friday night and use the cinema. It's amazing really what you created. And then finally at the back, summer's come in, we need to get our bodies looking nice and trim, a little home gym. And low cost to create something like this. It looks pretty cool in here. They've got their logo up on the wall, some mirrors in the background, and what an amazing space. What a great bonus to have for tenants to use something like this. Unfortunately, what that's done for me is now made me think I need to level up my HMOs, because A&E property, they're smashing it. I haven't got gyms, I haven't got cinemas and golf and all that sort of stuff. So stay tuned, we're going to have to increase the level a little bit. Okay, now is time to put all of your hatred to the side for HMOs. Let's be friends, okay? And we're going to get to the most important part, I think, if you're a property developer and you're watching this video. If you're looking to start HMO as a business or scale an existing HMO business, you'll want to know the most important bit, which is the numbers, okay? So what I want these guys to do is break that down for us. Ellis, you're the one who acquires things, so talk to me about how much you bought this property for, what you've spent on it total, and then what you've managed to get it revalued for, and also if we can talk a little bit about the rent that you're going to achieve from this building as well.
Sure. So we actually had this secured for £245,000.
Right.
And whilst was going through the process, the vendor's solicitor contacted us and said the vendor is willing to knock £5,000 off because the boiler doesn't work, or the boiler hasn't had a certificate, something like that. So I was like, thank you very much, but that's going to get ripped out anyway.
Oh, right.
So that's a nice little bonus. So we ended up having it for £240,000. We spent around £260,000 in total on the build, which is more than what we normally spend because we had a few issues with the builder and we had to swap builders halfway through. So there was a couple of issues there. But the valuation based on the rental income, which is approximately £6,500 a month, which is, I think it's around £78,000 a year. The valuation should be approximately £750,000 to £800,000. And that's currently, we're just waiting for the valuation report to come back on that. But that's based on the way that the surveyor values all of our previous HMOs.
So this is a yield-based commercial red book valuation. So guys, you heard that. They've actually spent more money on the property than they actually bought it for. £260,000 on the conversion, £240,000 to buy it. It's incredible, you know, that you can spend that much money, but that's how expensive build costs can be here in the UK. So putting that to the side, you've got it revalued, or short to be revalued, 750 to 800. How much money are you leaving in this deal because, you know, in property, we're all obsessed with this ability to keep recycling our cash, and you've probably seen it all, no money down terminology. So are you leaving considerable money here, or are you managing to pull most of your money back out?
No, so that'll be 75% loan to value. So we should pull all the money back out on that.
Amazing.
And then it should cash flow or just under £2,500 per month.
Perfect. And then, so the next biggest hurdle a lot of property developers face is builders. Yeah, how did that go? So did you get on smoothly with the builder from start to finish? No hiccups, no additional costs raised? Or was it the complete opposite, which I hear so many stories about?
Yeah, so we started this project, and what we did was we got on the ground running, because obviously we've done multiple HMOs, we know the situation, we know we can go out on the loft, we know what we're doing under permitted development. So we got started on this project, we brought an architect in and brought the builder in, and there was a few problems as we went through, and just things were not being done correctly how we wanted them. So we ended up falling out with the builder, and we had to bring in another builder. And obviously that's always more expensive because one builder doesn't want to finish another builder's work. So new builder come in, finished the project off. He had to get guys from another site and get all of that momentum going again to get the project finished. So obviously that added to the build cost, added to the length of time on getting things finished.
If you like this video, hit the like button. That really helps out the channel. Comment with any questions that you've got, and I'll do my very best to respond to the comments. And subscribe to the channel if you're seriously interested in property investing. There'll be lots of content here for you to watch. Yeah, I mean, generally as an investment area, cheap property, the purchase price is cheap, rental income seems to be quite strong still, and non-Article 4 area, so I think there's still a market for it. Whether there's a saturation problem, that's another thing to talk about, because, you know, if everyone keeps flooding into one location and creating these HMOs, eventually there's going to become a point where there's too many rooms and not enough people to actually fill them. So long term, I'm not sure if it's an area I'd want to invest in, but I do think there's absolutely a marketplace for it. And, you know, hats off to the people who are actually making it work in Gillingham. So.